Ooh, hey, what if?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, whether you're watching this show on YouTube, wherever you're downloading your podcast. This show is always free, and I always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Following Tuesday's spring practice, number 13, the one before the last one on Thursday, before Saturday's spring game, Coliseum, 12 o'clock kickoff, be there. So Coach Riley was asked following Tuesday's practice if he anticipated any more guys jumping into the portal. What if? Here was his answer. You never know. I mean, ask me again in 5 minutes. He was laughing, he had a smirk, smile. I don't know. I don't think we'll have a lot. Maybe that's my famous last words, but I don't think we'll have a whole lot. The team feels pretty steady in a lot of ways. But sure, there's going to be guys that are thinking about it. There are guys on every single roster across the country that are. We may have a few that are, and that's okay. If we do, we know we've got a couple targets we need to go after. If we lose a few more guys, that may increase those targets. We don't want to, but at the same time, if it is, we're going to look at it as an opportunity to make our team better. Well, look, the fans, so far the feedback I've gotten reading the message boards, especially over there on wearesc.com, they love this free agency window. 2 weeks. No holds barred. Players get to do what they want. And look, I've even kind of built up the hype because, the Trojans are expected to fill some holes on its roster. Made that perfectly clear. But Coach Riley is just waiting for everyone on his team right now to kind of make up their minds. Figure it out. What do you want to do? Even though he was smiling when he said, ask me again in 5 minutes, his point was clear. I mean, his answer was, who knows? Essentially, that's what he was saying. I think he has an idea of who those few guys who are considering their place on the depth chart. And it would be out of place. Look, I'll be honest with you. I already know some things that are happening. It would be out of place for me to speculate or even name specific guys because whatever, if they decide at the last second, you know what, I'm going to stick around regardless. Why should I be the one to kind of encourage them to move on by putting their name out there? It's not my place to do that. But here's what I would say if someone asked me for some advice. Even if it wasn't the answer that they wanted to hear. Sometimes life just throws stuff at you. You might not have anticipated it. How you handle it is, it's up to you. Look, if you've been on the roster since Clay Helton was the head coach and you're still kind of questioning your role going into year 3 with Lincoln Riley, it's probably a good idea. Follow your gut. For example, defensive lineman Stanley Taufo, he put his name into the transfer portal officially. I mentioned a minute ago that the staff, I think Lincoln Riley has his spidey senses set to sensitive right now. You could kind of tell with his answers, a little bit more bristly. I think he has an idea of who those guys are that are considering their place on the depth chart. I mentioned a few minutes ago. Look, here's how I know. He was asked about it by a member of the media. Like Coach Riley got a little bit more direct, more straightforward. We've tried to have some pretty proactive conversations. You see, some of our guys have gone in pretty early. And so we've told them, guys that aren't committed to this thing, we're not going to rep you in the spring. In other words, they're not going to get springtime repetitions. Those reps. This isn't like Pee Wee where everyone gets to play. These reps are for valuable. So unless you can fully commit to us in the spring, we're not going to give them to you. We may have a couple of guys that are unexpected to jump in. They might. And if they do, that's part of it. But I think we, for the most part, have avoided that. Where a lot of guys who have left, we were able to have those conversations early on. They're obviously not with us now, and the other guys that need to be getting the reps are getting the reps. Close the quote. That was, like I said, that was pretty straightforward. I think there was another message that was kind of embedded in that soliloquy. That part about this isn't Pee Wee football where everyone gets to play. I had me some Dan Hawkins flashbacks. Raise your hand if you remember the Best Damn Sports Show on Fox Sports about 15 years ago. Rodney Pete, he was a host. Rob Dibble, John Sally, Chris Rose, those guys, remember? Great show. Apparently, I'm going to do a little flashback for you. Apparently, Coach Hawkins, Dan Hawkins, he was Colorado's coach at the time when they were still in the Big 12. He got an anonymous letter from a parent of a player who was concerned about the players not getting enough time off. The parent felt the players needed more time between spring and their summer obligations. So this is me right now doing Coach Hawkins. Some guys might decide it's a little too tough, a little too hard, too demanding. I'll give you an example. I got an anonymous letter from a parent who was a little bummed the guys only get 2 weeks off before the start of their summer conditioning program. It's Division I football. It's the Big 12. It ain't intramurals. You get 2 weeks after finals. You get the week of July 4th, and you get a week before fall camp starts. That's a month. That's probably more vacation than you guys get. And we're a little bummed out that we don't get 3 weeks. Go play intramurals, brother. Go play intramurals. Okay, look, if you haven't heard or seen that Dan Hawkins video, make sure you go do it. Jump on YouTube when you're done with this show. But that's what Coach Riley was saying. That was the message he was trying to convey when he was talking about, reps during spring camp and how they're being distributed right now. This isn't Pee Wee. This isn't intramurals. You got to earn them. They're not just going to be handed to you. So, look, he was telling the guys who were thinking about, jumping into the transfer portal, either here's your message. You keep working or just keep stepping. Leave. So look, the combination of the transfer portal and trying to satisfy playing time, I think right now Coach Riley's kind of just flexing a little bit. I'm not saying it's about time, but he's laying down the law. Look, you guys want to play this man's professional game? Well, I'm going to talk to you like you're a man. I got no problem with that. He told the guys who are thinking about leaving, you're either in or you're out. Because, as he stated, I'll just remind you, we're going to look at it as an opportunity to make our team better. So on that note, have any of you thought about the whole processing players part of this process? Because that's what's going on behind the scenes. Coach Riley said it. We've had some proactive conversations. Okay. I'm confirming it. If Coach Riley is going to look at the transfer portal as a chance to make his team better, would you, the fans, right? You're outside looking in. Are you going to be okay with him encouraging a few guys to leave? I have a feeling, one or two may be getting that pink slip call. I need you to come to my office call. It's the ugly part of the game. Kind of cutthroat. It is what it is. You only get 85 roster spots. And if there are guys out there who want to come to USC, impact guys that you need to make space for, on the roster, especially if you're paying for the player. You know where I'm going with that, NIL. Look, you hate to hear it, but guys are getting the call into Coach Riley's office. They're getting that man-to-man talk. I know of one for right now, but I have to imagine there's going to be a few more, at least 2, 3 more. Tell me, hit me up in the comments section. What do you think? Are you ready? We knew that processing used to take part before NIL, before the transfer portal, and we frowned on it. Now, it's just part of the everyday process of building your roster. And you can thank the transfer portal for it, specifically the spring transfer portal window for it. Just another reason why you need to get rid of it. I've been told I'm a competitive person. Can you tell? Well, the more you get to know me, the more you're going to agree. Okay, well, yeah, I do have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part, my favorite part, is I get to mess with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties. And then just like kind of like what you see in the classic Monopoly game, you're familiar with that. But now, you know what else I can do? Because I own those properties, I can go in whenever I want and I can rob their vaults, rob their safe. And the leaderboards, they show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get the game, join your friends, download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. It's Locked On's mock draft. It's Locked On's NFL mock draft live on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern, streaming on the Locked On Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL mock draft on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right. So look, we know April 16th. Yeah, that was the first day players could officially put their names into the transfer portal. Yeah, we're digging deep into this. We're going to talk about it. It's what you guys want to talk about. So while everyone is waiting for those big kabooms to drop, look, if you guys only knew how many messages I received today asking me, well, we're waiting. Just going to say, calm down. Many of these guys, they haven't even entered their names in the transfer portal yet. Some of them are still in spring camp. So relax, chill out, smoke them if you got them. But that doesn't mean that, USC doesn't have, needs that they have to address, right? So look, let's talking about one of those rooms that needs to be addressed. Look, for as ridiculous as it is for someone to believe that the Trojans only have the 10th best wide receiver core in the country, I actually saw a list compiled. USC's wide receivers came in 10th. I literally did an eye roll. I chuckled and I just kept scrolling. It's like, yeah, I'm not even going to comment. But as ridiculous as that notion is, USC still needs more than 7 wide receivers on their roster. Yes, it's true. USC, they have a lot of tight ends who can probably line up. I can think of a couple of them who can line up at the wide receiver position. but you need more natural wide receivers. So I think number-wise, Dennis Simmons and Coach Riley, um, they want more because you got to take into account attrition. Injuries happen, and hopefully nobody else is considering leaving through the transfer portal. So here I put together a few names to eyeball. Ones who I think USC is going to show interest in. Here's the first one. His name is Keandre Lambert-Smith. Played wide receiver at Penn State. He's from Virginia. He had an offer from USC in the 2020 recruiting class, and Lambert-Smith was actually very productive in his 4 years at Penn State. So he would be coming over with 2 years of eligibility if we're using the COVID year. 6'1", 181 pounds. He caught 126 passes for 1,721 yards and 11 touchdowns playing for the Nittany Lions, including 53 catches last year, which had 673 yards and 4 touchdowns. He led Penn State in catches and yards. So here's my question. You're the team's leading receiver. Why would you want to leave? Well, if you're looking at the stats, 53 catches, 673 yards, there's not a lot of yards after catch. Not terrible, but it is kind of what it is, right? So is he not a fan of the offense, their quarterback situation? Or who knows? Is it NIL? Anybody have any insight to it? It seems kind of odd that your leading wide receiver would jump into the transfer portal. I'm thinking maybe it's NIL. It's a little bit more exposure. We'll see if Coach Riley does a Zoom call with him. Now, according to On3 Network's Pete Nakos, a source told On3 on Tuesday night that USC is now in the mix. So we'll find out. Apparently, USC wasn't the first one of the teams early on to reach out to him. Here's another wide receiver who might want to move from one big city to another big city. University of Houston Cougars wide receiver Sam Brown. He jumped into the transfer portal. He's 6'2". He's 190 pounds. Good size, decent speed. Brown spent these last 2 seasons with Houston. He began his college career at West Virginia. He led Houston with 62 catches, 815 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ranked 10th in the conference in total receiving yards, 8th in receiving yards per game, just under 68, 67.9, and he earned honorable mention All Big 12. Well, it seems like every receiver from Houston has jumped into the transfer portal. We'll see what happens there. Here's another wide receiver. This one makes sense. I could see him maybe wanting to come back to LA. His name is Justice Ross Simmons. He played at Colorado State. He's from New York originally, but he played his final 2 years of high school at Inglewood High School down the street from USC. Now, 6'3", 205 pounds. He finished 3rd on Colorado State's team last year, 45 receptions, 724 yards, 3 touchdowns. You like that? 45 or 724? That's a good. He's either a deep ball threat, or he gets a lot of yards after the catch. And he backed that up after having a really strong freshman year in 2022, where he caught 26 passes for 424 yards and 3 touchdowns. I kind of like this guy. Here's another reason why. He's got multiple years of eligibility. He's not just a 1-year rental guy. And if you read the We Are SC message board, if you haven't, you should. You would already know that USC's made contact with him. I mentioned the name earlier on another episode of Locked on USC. My everydayers will remember this. Kyle Ford, is he coming back? I told you he was at a USC practice earlier this spring. Here's how I think USC fans, and it's probably the same way the wide receivers are looking at USC's roster right now. With USC's wide receiver core, whomever decides to come over, they have to know that USC already has a really good core of 4 to 5 guys firmly entrenched in the rotation. Zachariah Branch is, look, he is that X button, that red button on the joystick. My joystick, Atari. It moved like this and it had a red button. Jacoby Lane. Dude's an athletic freak. 6'4", plays like Dwayne Jarrett. He was asked if he changed his jersey number to number 8 because of that. He looked in the camera and said, no. Okay, whatever. He's the one who said he kind of resembles, his game looks like Dwayne Jarrett's. I don't know why he's wearing number 8. Maybe he'll tell us in the future. You got Mekhi Lemon. He gets talked about the least. He came in with his buddy quarterback, Malachi Nelson. Malachi's now at Boise State. Lemon, when you watch him play, he's got that confident man swagger to him. His game reminds me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown. And look, I didn't even get into Kyron Hudson. You got the transfer, Jaden Richardson. You got the freshman, Xavier Jordan. Oh, by the way, you have Deuce Robinson. I mean, he's a nightmare matchup, even for USC's big cornerbacks. Remember, 6'2" across the board. Some of them bigger than that. So, but that's it for the total number of scholarship quarterbacks, 7. I'm not sure there are any pure must-take guys out there in the transfer portal. Again, guys are jumping in by the minute, and today was the first day. So what if a guy like Jermaine Smith from Ohio State, what if he wants to come over? You have to do a really hard vetting because that's a lot of talent to USC's wide receiver room for 1 year. And he's coming for some NIL as well. Here's how I look at it. And I think here's how the wide receivers in the transfer portal are looking at USC. USC doesn't need a game breaker. They don't need a number 1 wide receiver. They need guys who can fit in, who can add some depth. Otherwise, if you're that dog out there who you think, you know what, I don't care about Zachariah, I don't care about Deuce, Jacoby, Mekhi, Kyron, Xavier, Jaden, who cares? Hey, step on up. Show us what you got. Because if you're out there and you want to be part of USC, Lincoln Riley will talk to you. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now, you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. This couldn't exist without the help of sponsors like Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need all in one place. Securely link your brokerage account for a unified view of your wealth, including a 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number 1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Is this the year of Anthony Lucas? Year 2? The way Coach Riley spoke about him after practice Tuesday, 2 things have changed. the scheme. It's no more run by or run around the guy. It's play through the guy. It's put your hands on and play through his heart. And sometimes go around the guy. That's the scheme now. If you listen to the last couple of episodes of Locked on USC, you'll recognize that whole playing through their heart. That's a Sean Nua quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from spring so far. So yeah, Lucas is he's playing more physical. He's getting a chance to play physical football, and he's adapted really well, according to Coach Riley. Last spring, Coach Riley and his teammates, they talked about the stuff that Lucas would flash, what he was showing, things that he was capable of doing. But none of that showed up in the fall. None of it. Coach Riley said after practice Tuesday, now he's more consistent. He's making plays now that are different than last spring. He's one of those guys who's taken to the new scheme, the new style up front. It's really fit what he needs to become as a player. Something else Coach Riley suggested is that Lucas is learning how to play through adversity or a little pain, whereas last year he might have, sat out. Quote, the scheme and the coaching has been very positive for him. That last part has everything to do with Coach Henne. Everything. If you don't bring that dog work mentality, then just don't show up. Literally, don't come back. Right, Isaiah Rakes? Dog work. Discipline, attitude, work ethic, grit. You pack your lunch and you go to work. If Lucas and Bear Alexander are on one side of the defensive line causing chaos, that's a great sign. And if Anthony Lucas is the type of guy who you can move around outside, inside, both sides of the line, that's a great thing. Speaking of strong work ethic, just a couple more notes I want to drop off here. Zachariah Branch. He's done with track and field for the season. He's going to focus on football. He mentioned after practice that, he's still hanging out there with his guys on the track team, supporting him. But, time just to focus on football going forward. Oh, the spring game, it's going to be, want to know what's going to be like? It's going to be one half of football. Okay? So you're going to get a 30-minute running clock. And if you, before that, you're going to kind of get a glimpse. You're going to see what the media sees from a practice perspective. You'll get an idea. So you'll see how the position groups, the drills that they run through. Their skip and stretch, their conditioning session, all that stuff. If you were at last year's event, it's going to be the same. Miller Moss, I'm going to go out on a limb. He's going to be quarterback one. But here, look, I'm not going to be surprised if the reps are pretty evenly distributed between Miller and Jaden and even Jake Jensen. How many reps are the walk-ons going to get? Gage Roy. 2, 3, 4, 5. How many should? Look, it's the spring game. We're not talking about divulging a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. But where earlier Lincoln Riley said, look, this isn't Pee-wees, not everybody gets to play. I think in the spring game, you give everybody a chance to say, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm here. Look at me. That might be the only time they play in a game this year. On this show, Locked on USC, we root for the walk-ons. Those guys always, they work the hardest. They really do. And they get the least amount of recognition and respect. So on this show, we show them as much as possible, whenever possible. And on that note, since we're talking about walk-ons, I'm trying to get an interview lined up with Killian O'Connor, your backup center. I want to find out how he got his nickname. And I want to ask him I found out some interesting news. I want to find out I want to ask him about his grandfather and his dad. Both who were walk-ons when they played in college. They became team leaders. Dad even became a team captain for a couple of years. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's kind of like the epitome of dog work, right? So I love those types of backstories. And I told you, I kind of sense that in Killian when you watch him practice. So hopefully when his class schedule permits, I'm going to get the backstory about all this. I think you guys want to find out about it. I know I do. I'll see what I can find out. So there we go. Another episode, Locked On USC in the books. Real transfer portal heavy, but I think you understand why. Spring game, just a few days away now. One more spring camp practice on Thursday. I'll be out there. I have that final spring report. And then, boom, we're right into the spring game. So until then, everyone, keep tuning in. You know what to do.